Hello there, you're welcome along to Monday evenings off the ball. We are busy this evening. We'll hear from Leona Maguire, fresh from becoming Ireland's first ever winner on the LPGA Tour over the weekend. Meanwhile, in the Six Nations, it seems Ireland picked up right where they left off in November. Jerry Thornley and Liam Toland on the way after 8. Billy Joe Patton on the weekend's football. Dublin 0 for 2 in the league, which is catching the eye amongst other things. Joseph and Doe on the African Cup of Nations, a win for Senegal. And then Dion Fanning on the joint bid, FAI included, very much so, for the Euros in 2028. Also this evening, the FAI launching their strategy 2022 to 2025. So Dion is going to be watching that and bringing you what's in it, frankly, so you don't have to watch the full hour of the presentation. He's going to do it for you. 53106 is the text number. We're at Off the Ball on Twitter. Adrian Barry is with us this evening. Hello.
Evening, Joseph.
And Richie McCormack. What's going on?
Gents, how are you?
I'm very well. So look, Adrian, we have Leona Maguire sticking it to everybody in the LPGA Tour. We have Irish rugby up to third in the world, playing a beautiful brand. We have the Dubs getting whipped. I mean, you're a happy man out there.
Look, geez, and Leona, we should definitely spend a bit of time talking about. And it was an amazing weekend of sport. I sort of realised over the weekend that I was listening to, I appreciate nobody want to hear too much about this, but I was listening to Westmeath against Laois on the radio yesterday, and I have discovered at this point in my life, there's nothing that makes me more apprehensive than listening to Westmeath matches on the radio. It's absolute torture. But anyway, that's a by the by, Joe. Leona, wow. Incredible stuff, isn't it? Like, it feels, what is she, 27? Feels like she's been around for about, she's been around for 27 years. It feels like she's been in the Irish public consciousness for about 20 odd years. And this was really, I think, I don't know, it was in the post-match, and look, I was definitely one of those ones that I tuned in for the last few holes last night, and I'm sure there was a lot of the country doing the same, but I know she was talking afterwards about, you'd hope that there was young girls tuned in, and they probably weren't at that time of a weekend evening, but that the fallout from it and the aftermath of it, and listened to her, and her dad was on AM this morning, and it's amazing. It's a feel-good story, isn't it? Makes us all feel better about ourselves.
Yeah, I think so. 27, an extraordinary amateur career. She did spend 131 weeks as the world number one in the amateur ranks, and she got into the US collegiate system. I think there was a worry or a sense that maybe things were passing her by a touch for a while, because she did seem like a prodigy. As you said, we've all been aware generally of the Maguire twins for a long time, and they were destined for great things, and it didn't happen immediately. And golf, and female golf in particular, is a sport where young players can do amazing things. Michelle Wee at 16 playing in, or even 14, was it? Where she played in Hawaii in the men's tournament, and went on to do great things in the women's games. So by comparison, I was certainly wondering what was the hold-up with Leona Maguire. But very steadily and astutely, she picked her moments and plotted her course, and has come on the professional scene of late. The Solheim Cup last year for her, where she was a rookie, you're still talking about, even though she's 27, she was a rookie, and she went 4-1-0, played all 5 matches, unbeaten. That was a real marker. And now she's kicked on. She's had a lot of good finishes. Like, she came into this tournament 37th in the world on the back of good performances last year. Last year was her big step forward for me. She'll go into the world's top 20 now. What struck me about the performance is her ball striking. I don't think she's going to overpower courses, but she finds a lot of fairways. Her iron play was exemplary, bar the 18th. But her iron play was absolutely exemplary, and she puts very well. But she didn't put the lights out on Saturday, which was the final round. She just took the course to its knees with ball striking display, which really caught the eye. And, for me and for other golfing fans, kind of cool that she's holding off Lexi Thompson. Lexi Thompson's a big name in golf. Should have won the US Open last year. Has a case of the putting yips, I think, but that's a whole other story. But this was, there was it was a bit of a glamour tie, going up against one of the marquee names, one of the more famous names in American golf, holding her and the rest off. So for Leona Maguire, it's amazing. Look, any day you win $225,000 doesn't hurt either. And her caddy Dermot Byrne, who was on Shane Lowry's bag for a long time as well, it's great for him. So it's amazing for Irish golf. I think you're right on the participation point. There is no reason. My God, if ever there's a country that has too many golf courses, probably, and participation numbers are through the roof for men. We don't compare as well in the female ranks, so this could be a massive fill-up from that point of view. But it's fantastic, and she's modest to a fault. But I think,
cool customer, isn't she?
Yeah, I think next 10 years could be really interesting. She'll have majors on her radar now going forward.
Mm. Yeah, she was. I interested afterwards. Like, there wasn't even with. I was watching one of the other tournaments over the weekend, Joe. That escapes me, but I'm sure you'll be all over it.
Pebble or Saudi Arabia? Because this is now a moral question.
It was probably Saudi Arabia, actually.
Says it all about you.
It does. It says everything you need to know. But there was whoever was leading. I'm very sketchy in details here. You'll be all over it. Whoever was leading was 4 or 5 shots clear. There were about 3 shots clear, and he was grinning ear to ear. He couldn't help but get ahead of himself. Whereas Leona, coming down those last few holes with 4 or 5 shot lead, cool as could be, wasn't getting one shot ahead of herself. You could see that she was still in the zone. Mm-hmm. She was still make this shot, get it on the green. And even at that, when it was like, right, you can 3-putt this and still win it, she was still just absolutely deadpan and very calm afterwards. Like, there was no, like, maybe a flick of emotion in her voice, but she certainly wasn't, for the magnitude of the achievement, she certainly wasn't, as emotional as you would often see players. So, I mean, hopefully that's a sign of her thinking there's a lot more to come here.
Yeah, it's a great point. Often with first-time winners, they've climbed the mountain, they've climbed Everest. If I never win another tournament, I don't care. I'm just so happy. She was not overcome by the whole thing. I think the Solheim, in some respects, the Solheim performance was almost more eye-grabbing, I think, for the golfing community at large. For Ireland to have its first ever LPGA Tour winner, we're obviously a bit more excited about this. But yeah, it's great. So she's on Golf Weekly this week. The interview just recorded maybe in the last kind of hour or so. Nathan Murphy and Fionn Davenport were chatting to her. The full interview will go up in Golf Weekly, and we're going to play maybe 10-15 minutes of a chat with Nathan around 7:30. So Leona Maguire on the show this evening, giving her reaction. And then Richie, look, this is rugby country. You know what I mean? This was just devastating. Ireland third in the world. Look, I think it's pretty obvious what we're talking about here. The question now is, can Ireland retain the World Cup in 5 years' time? And that's what I want to get your thoughts on this evening.
The strength and depth is there, Joe. We've got the coach. We've got the production line that so many other sports are kind of calling out for. And we've seen the Dubs production line grinds to a halt. The Irish rugby production line in Leinster, let's be honest, seems to be rolling on regardless. And we are going to win at least the next 4 out of the next 5 World Cups. Yeah. It's nailed on. I don't think we can. That's probably underselling it.
Understand. Okay. When 42
Maguire right here.
We are. When 42-year-old Johnny Sexton lifts the World Cup for the second time in 5 years, I think that's going to be a sweet moment.
Not a bother to him. Not a bother to him. He's probably going to be kicking left-footed by then. He'd be like Ronnie O'Sullivan going around the table.
Anton Dupont, to be more serious for a moment, did say Ireland are. He didn't say the big cheese. He said Ireland are a big cheese ahead of the game on Saturday. So he certainly doesn't. He's not putting Ireland up on a pedestal alone, but they're on the pedestal with the other big cheeses.
They are un grand fromage as opposed to le grand fromage.
Correct,
is what he's saying.
Correct.
Yeah, that's fair.
Wow, he really Antoine really overstretched himself there, didn't he? That was
this game on Saturday. Geez, I don't see how it can't deliver on expectations, Richie. It's going to be amazing.
Yeah, meeting fire with fire, I think, is the term that's been doing the rounds a lot today, and I think in the wake of France yesterday. I don't know about you, I wasn't mightily impressed with France yesterday in places, that first half in particular. No, the conditions in Paris were hardly ideal, but they weren't. Like, there was a lot of sloppy kicking, and it wasn't necessarily just handling errors. A lot of sloppy kicking, a lot of sloppy handling, and they just seemed like they were playing their own expectations, I think, for the first 25 minutes or so. And Italy very much had a footing in that game. It's a pity they kind of crumbled away, and it was a mistake close on to the end of the first half that really, I suppose, put France's noses in front, never to return. But, it showed that there are opportunities for Ireland to take advantage of. And we know what a Paris crowd is like. If stuff isn't going their way, they can get on top of the team, even if they are the best in the world at the moment, pretty quickly. So there's enough hope to be gleaned from yesterday's performance from a French perspective. And on the Irish front, they will want to build on Saturday, because they didn't. I think Eddie O'Sullivan was making the point on TV yesterday. They didn't put enough points on the board against Wales when they were there for them. Welsh side, compared to last year, and I know they have injuries and this and that, but you play what's in front of you, and what was in front of Ireland on Saturday was pretty thin gruel, and probably should have put more points in them than they did. And the hope is that when it does come down to the final weekend and we're away in Murrayfield, I believe, and or we have Scotland at home, that we're not trying to basically do a points chase on the final day, because if that comes down to it, then that's when Irish nerve is going to come back into play. But overall, like, you can't pick too many holes in what they did. You would just have hoped that they put more points in what will be poorer sides again down the track.
Yeah, fair point. The other thing about Saturday, which jumps out, Adrian, is that just by a combination of COVID and circumstance, Ireland have had an unprecedented run at the Aviva Stadium. So we're on a run of 9 successive wins, but 7 of them have been at home. So now this is a real road testing of this newer version of Ireland, and well, Paris is a hell of a place to test it.
Yeah, and like you definitely urge a little bit of caution on the Irish side. I mean, I don't know what sort of a maturation of cheese we are, but Wales were dire, and that is a huge context. I do think this Ireland team are really good, clearly, and they clearly are going places, and we're clearly building strength and depth. Like, I thought Mac Hansen was a bit of a shot to nothing in some regard. Maybe he was sort of his hand forced a bit, but in some regards a shot to nothing on Saturday, and like one of the best players on the pitch. And so there's across most of our positions now we have serious depth, and that's kind of what you're looking for, and that's the caveat, obviously. But it was probably a good opener to have, in that, like, Wales were up to nothing and you want to ease yourself into it a little bit. Entirely different conversation for the weekend coming. We should have nilled Wales at the weekend. That was the one big regret. They were that bad. Like, we should not, and the concession of the tries it was so desperate, obviously. But I hadn't heard Eddie, but totally agree with that. Like, the scoreboard management, as they call it, could have been a little bit better. Conditions, to be fair, notwithstanding. But I wouldn't be basing a lot of the conversation about France about what happened last weekend.
No, and Jerry Thornley, who's on the way after 8 o'clock, he has it in good authority that they put in a hard week's training, almost akin to a good GAA team the week of a league match. They did a really tough week's training in advance of the Italy game. They're obviously coming back from COVID on several fronts, and someone like Dupont hasn't played much rugby. So I think that Italy game has to be seen in the context of getting ready for Ireland, and we'll see a very different France on Saturday. So that's on the way. After 8 o'clock.
Can I ask a question, Joe, that I haven't heard asked in the aftermath of the game, and it was really the big question that I haven't heard addressed just yet. Why did Michael D not come down and shake everybody's hand?
Don't know. Is that a COVID thing? Must still be.
It has been. That's been a COVID thing for the last while.
Is it still? I thought, like, did Michal not say, listen, was that not one of the things he said afterwards?
We can go and
I'm announcing
hands.
That Michael D can come down and shake hands with the team.
Yeah, I was talking to we had Brian in on Thursday, and he was saying the same thing. Brian was going around glad handing everybody. So why Michael D can't do the same, I don't know. But maybe it's just a case of, you can shake hands, but maybe not try and do it to 46 different people all at once. It's probably not the best idea.
Probably is the thinking.
A bit of a spray between each shake. Yeah.
Can't really seem quite being at the going down and fist pumping everyone either. So maybe it's that's the thinking.
Chest bumping them, Joe.
So the news round is brought to you by Gillette. Put your best face forward with our new and improved razors now. This is obviously headline news there on the News Talk headlines a few moments ago. Richie, FAI included, were part of a joint bid.
We are. The FAI CEO, Jonathan Hill, says the Euro 2028 bid can show that Ireland is a big player on football's world stage. They partnered with the English, Welsh, Scottish and Northern Irish associations to launch a bid for the Euros in 2028. And that follows a decision, collective one as well, to scrap a proposed bid for the 2030 World Cup. Hill told FAI TV today the potential benefits of hosting the Euros to the country as a whole are huge.
If we do qualify, the possibility of having the Irish team playing in Dublin as part of that major tournament is hugely exciting. So from a football perspective, that is very much what we're looking to do. And again, part of our strategy is to host international events. From a wider perspective, we're working very closely with the government. As you know, we've been working hand in hand with the government over the last 2 years anyway. They too are very excited at the prospect of hosting the Euros. It has obviously wider economic and social benefits. There's a whole range of positive outcomes that we'll have in relation to inward tourism, employment, and the use of local volunteers, etc. So we're working with government now, with the Irish government now, to look at all of those impacts, and in particular the economic impact. But for now, the government are very positive to work with us in relation to the bid.
I think there's a general feeling of crossing of arms around this whole situation amongst the general populace, not least because when it comes to football facilities in this country, they have really been left to wither on the vine far too often. Damien Duff even talking couple of months ago when he got the Shelburne job was saying breaks his heart to see the job that GAA, for instance, have done around the country, and he goes to football facilities and they're exactly the same as what he remembers before he went to Blackburn Rovers as a teenager, and he's scratching his head. So I think all of us probably, I mean, in so much as you can say all of us anything, but all of us probably feel all and any money should be directed towards bringing up facilities for the wider populace. Now, if it's a case that hosting these one-off or matches or however many handful of matches in Dublin at the Aviva or at Croke Park, stadium's already built, it's not going to cordon off a load of money. It's not like we're talking about bringing other stadiums up to scratch. I don't have a massive problem if that's what we're talking about, Adrian. I guess we'll see more detail in the coming days.
Yeah, I'd like to see some of that detail that he talks about there. I didn't get the volunteers point. I didn't understand that, but I'd just like to see some more of the detail around where this money goes to. How much money is coming in? Where is it going to go? How does it benefit the football family? Like I was looking at some of the numbers earlier on, and in terms of the money generated by the European Championship particularly, and like, look, I mean, if the people who are running football at a European and world level have their way, there'll be one for everybody in the audience at some point down the track. So it's nearly inevitable that every country on the planet is going to be hosting games at some point if it continues to the scale that it's going now. But that aside, Sweden 92 generated revenue 41 million euro, right? 92, not that long ago. By 2020, that was 2.5 billion. So that's the level of money that's been generated. That was carved up 18 million each in 2020. 18 million each went to the 55 UEFA member nations. And then also, I was just trying to get a bit of a fix as to some of those things that Jonathan Hill was talking about there in terms of the economic benefit to us here. And this is from a society point of view. I don't know. I've no detail, and again, I'd like to see some of the detail. Maybe some of that comes out in this, maybe it doesn't either, this report that they're doing at the minute, or maybe it comes out at a later date. But when we were part of that Euro 2020, when we were actually part of Euro 2020 before it all got, before we had to give it up, we had done a study at that point to say that we were going to generate over 106 million euro in economic activity. So that's the sort of number that makes you actually think, makes me unfold my arms a little bit and go, well, that's good. This is actually good business.
Yeah.
And so I'd just like to see a little bit more of that stuff. That some of the comment from Jonathan Hill there, and like, look, I appreciate he's doing like a 2 or 3 minute bit with an in-house TV station. He's not going to be going into any great detail, but I'd like to hear from him now, just on a bit more detail around what actually are the benefits of it.
Yeah, I'm sure that'll happen in due course. What's happening this evening, by the way, is the FAI are launching their strategy 2022 to 2025. Dion Fanning's keeping a close eye on that, so he's going to join us after 9 and bring us any headline news, and I guess that's where things like facilities and participation rates and everything, which is so important, and pathways as well for female and male players to come through and fulfill their potential. That's where all that stuff ultimately will be decided upon. So Dion Fanning's with us after 9. Richie, you have a clip of Leona Maguire.
Yeah, she says her maiden LPGA Tour victory came somewhat ahead of schedule. The Cavan golfer claimed the drive-on championship on Saturday evening, with the final round 67 seeing her finish 3 shots ahead of the aforementioned Lexi Thompson. And Maguire says the win is the culmination of hard work with her coach, Shane O'Grady.
I've worked my way up the levels every time. It's been quite a meticulous journey. I did it my way. I did it the way I wanted to do it with the help of my team around me. And I feel like the way I've gone about it, I've been prepared at every level. I've sort of mastered each level, and I know people probably thought I was going to win maybe before this. I was maybe getting a little impatient last year, but I think going down the stretch at Meyer last year with Nelly, that was a huge confidence boost for me, knowing that, yeah, she was 3 shots ahead and I nearly closed the gap, but really felt like I held my own that week. And then the 61 at Evian too, and obviously Solheim Cup was a massive confidence booster, but Solheim Cup's one thing to do it in an individual event when it's just you out there by yourself. That's a different ball game. So yeah, I mean, I feel like I've been growing all the time. Did a lot of good work at home with Shane over the winter, and didn't expect for it to pay off this early in the season. Struggled a little bit last week, wasn't entirely comfortable. Did a FaceTime with Shane on the range on Monday afternoon. He was actually going to pick up his girls, Neve and Cueva, from school, and he FaceTimed me from the car park sitting outside the school. So Shane's been there from day one. He's been a massive part of this journey, and it's those little things that you just need, that little feeling sometimes for things to click.
Yeah, meticulous is a good word for how she's built her career. So now at 27, LPGA Tour winner. We're going to hear from Leona Maguire in more detail in about 10 minutes' time or so. So, Richie, let's keep getting through some of these stories from the afternoon. We have some injury news ahead of Six Nations Round 2.
Yeah, Keith Earls and Rob Herring are going to miss Ireland's trip to France on Saturday. Earls is staying with Munster to have a hamstring injury rehabbed, while a calf injury has cost Herring a trip to Paris, and he's been replaced in the squad by Connacht's Dave Heffernan. The Ulster trio of Mike Lowry, Robert Balakoon and Nick Timoney have rejoined the Ireland camp after helping their province to victory over Connacht on Friday night. France centre Jonathan Danty has been ruled out of Saturday's game. He has an ankle injury. He was a second half replacement for Yoram Moefana. Danty is replaced by the uncapped Lyon out half Leo Berdieu. Elsewhere, the Elsa Desmond set a personal best in her opening run of the women's singles luge at the Winter Olympics today. However, a slower second run means Desmond will go into tomorrow's third run in 34th position overall. Only the top 20 after 3 runs progress to the medal deciding final run. Earlier, Jack Gower finished 31st in the men's downhill skiing, while Tess Arbey did not finish in the giant slalom. That's after a fall in the second intermediate. And going back to rugby, Will Connor's rotten luck with injury continues today. The flanker faced with 8 to 10 weeks on the sidelines after suffering a knee ligament injury in Leinster's recent defeat to Cardiff. Connors only returned from the 8-month layoff in November. Joe McCarthy will have a chest issue assessed ahead of the weekend visit of Edinburgh, while Dave Kearney is back in full training for Leinster.
Lads, delighted Joseph Indo on the show this evening. An argument he's the greatest League of Ireland player ever, says Tony. Yeah, we're looking forward to having him on. I mean, amongst other things up for discussion will be this whole business of Mo Salah being 5th in line to take a penalty and not getting to take said penalty. Cristiano Ronaldo had a situation like this at the Euros a couple of years ago, Adrian. It just strikes me of one of these odd quirks of football which makes no sense. It makes no sense.
Yeah, like, is it just a case of overthinking it? Like, if we get that far, you want him to be there, and like suddenly he's the hero, and suddenly, you know, it looks like it's a genius move. I don't know. In hindsight, it looks a bit silly. I mean, let's face it.
Yeah. I heard Danny.
Yeah, and it was
I was just going to say, I heard Danny Murphy today saying first or fourth. That's where you go.
Statistically, that's where you go. Yeah, first or fourth are the most important. I think it's a Salah call, to be honest. I don't think it was Carlos Queiroz that made it, because Salah has made a habit before in Liverpool penalty shootouts of going 5th, and I think it's happened before in an Egypt one too. So I'm not entirely sure it would have been a Queiroz one. I think it would have been himself that wanted the 5th, but ultimately it was in vain.
I mean,
based on what, I wonder?
Well, I think it's a psychology, isn't it? It's that I suspect the most there's a lot of pressure on the first one, and then I would think 2 and 3 are the least pressurised. Not to say there's not a lot of pressure, but then once you get into a kick either to stay in the shootout or to win the shootout, then I would think there is extra pressure, in particular to stay in it as opposed to win it. And that's where you probably want one of your better penalty kick takers to at least handle that pressure, or to be more likely to handle the pressure. But 5th just feels like you're tempting fate.
Well, like, you're almost saying, I mean, look at again, if they get to the place and he scores and they win it, great. And he's like, it's uber faith in my teammates to do it. And I was telling them that by going 5th. And I noticed Richie was tweeting the arm around from Mane last night as well. But Salah did look like it was the last person in the world he wanted to speak to. It was like, please,
especially after the first penalty, during, was it the 3rd minute? It took them 3 minutes to eventually get round to it. But Salah was going up to the Egyptian keeper, telling him what side Mane was likely to go. And Mane arrived up beside Salah and started giving verbals to the keeper as well. So the two of them were, like, there wasn't necessarily a case of great Liverpool kinship on that pitch yesterday, nor should there have been. But yeah, like, you can imagine in that moment, like, it was akin to, like, do you remember when Thierry Henry sat down beside Richard Dunn on the Stade de France pitch? You're just like, get the hell away from me. The last thing I want to do is talk to you right now. And probably a pretty similar situation.
Slightly frosty private flight back to Liverpool, maybe, with the two boys. Not quite.
Salah's coming back in his own.
Salah's
coming back in his own. Yeah. Well, like, he made it be known that he wants to play on Thursday against Leicester. Okay. He just wants to get back out on the pitch, and Mane is in Dakar right now. They're having an almighty hoolie there at the minute. So there'll be a delay, as Klopp kind of alluded to on Friday afternoon, that there'll be one or two will be coming back. One of them will be coming back later than the other.
Okay, very good. Adrian, Richie, thanks a mil, fellas.
Nice one.
Thanks, lads.
Your chance to win big. News Talk's Cash Machine.
No winner in today's Cash Machine, so we are rolling over now, and